All right, let's move on to our next region, the South region. Top seed, reigning national champs, the Florida Gators. Houston is the 2 seed, Illinois the 3. Their 5 through 12 is SEC runner-up Vanderbilt taking on 12 seed McNeese. 6 and 11 is North Carolina versus that very hot VCU team that we've talked about. And then, a great matchup in between St. Mary's and Texas A&M in the 7 and 10. Let's get right into it. Riley, me and you, both A10 guys, we both have a lot of experience talking about this conference. We teed up VCU at the beginning of the show, but now going up against North Carolina, what can you expect these Rams to do against the Tar Heels? How could they possibly slow them down en route to a trip to the second round?
I mean, listen, I can't say I've watched a lot of UNC this year. It's just sort of the mid-major sicko in me where, I'm tuning into mostly mid-major basketball most of the time, I would say. But I'll tell you what VCU does well, and that's they get up and down the floor, they score it with efficiency, but they bring it on both ends. Sort of the theme of the A10 this year has been teams that are shooting the three well, but also they're not afraid to attack the basket. I mean, the sort of the new Ken Pom stat that's been big this year is average 2-point distance, and VCU is one of the leading teams in the country in that statistic, but they back it up with 3-point shooting from the perimeter too, between guys like Terrence Hill, between guys like Barry Evans, Nick Lewis, who was A10 freshman of the year and was just phenomenal in the conference tournament the past couple of weeks. Jadrian Tracy, who's been a real spark plug for them, and sort of Phil Martelli over the last week at the A10 tournament talked about the way his defense sort of translates to offense for them, and he helps to set the tone there. And then sort of the focal point of it all has kind of become Lazar Djokovic on the interior, 6'11", got a ton of size, a ton of physicality. I mean, he's one of the leading offensive rebounders in the nation in terms of offensive rebounding percentage. But he shoots it effectively, too, because he gets to the rim so easily. I mean, the guy's huge. He can carve anyone up on the interior like butter for the most part at the A10 level. And sort of the combination of all that depth and all that offense and sort of the two-way ability they have, I think should give them a real chance against a team like UNC. I'd love to hear a little bit more from you guys about, maybe what UNC has to offer, but just a really strong two-way team in VCU that's playing some of their best basketball. I mean, we set it up a little bit in the intro, but really, really sort of ran away with the A10 title between a double-digit win over St. Joe's in the semifinals and then beating Dayton by double digits and really running away in the second half. And then, I mean, really from early January to early March in regular season conference play, they only picked up a lone loss, that being to St. Louis, another team, we'll be talking about here because of their at-large qualification to the NCAA tournament. So, I think this is an interesting draw for VCU here. They play it with a lot of tempo. They don't really hold on for the ball for too long, but they don't really turn it over a ton either. And they're really effective with the ball, or efficient, with the ball in their hands. So a strong two-way team. I think that'll give them a good shot against UNC, and hopefully if they advance, maybe even a good shot against an Illinois team. I don't want to look too far ahead, I suppose, but I think that gives VCU overall a pretty good shot at least winning one game in the tournament here potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big question for UNC, obviously. Not really the big question, but the big narrative around UNC, obviously, is the absence of Caleb Wilson, who's been out with an injury. He has not played since February 10th, and without him, UNC has gone, 5-3. They lost in their opening game in the ACC tournament to Clemson by a point. So, DeRosa, where has North Carolina looked to replace that efficiency from Wilson, and has this succeeded? And are they ready? Has it gelled enough for a tournament run?
I mean, it's kind of been balanced. They obviously haven't been as good without a lottery pick, right? Like it is different, but I mean, I have some of the numbers in front of me. I was looking at it earlier. This won't directly answer your question, but it'll give an overview of the game. Where I don't know if VCU really has an answer for Henry Vassar, where I imagine they're going to go mostly to try to replace him in that interior production, just because I don't think Djokovic is a great post defender where he can step out and hit a three. He rebounds offensively very well, as Riley alluded to. I don't think he's that physical defender. I think he's really kind of falls apart when teams are able to body him down low and get paint touches and just put it up over him. But since Wilson's gone out, just looking at his on-offs on Hoop Explorer, they force substantially less turnovers. They are worse on the glass, which Djokovic could get to, and they foul a lot more. teams have been worse from three with Wilson off the floor than on, which I really just think truly is variance. And VCU is a team that really is going to like go at UNC's drop coverage. UNC does a lot to keep the ball in guards' hands. And where guys like Terrence Hill, who I think is an absolute stud, Nick Lewis, as you mentioned, was the freshman of the year in the league, Adrian Tracy, Brennan Jennings, I like his game a lot too. Teams are able to hit mid-range jumpers against UNC. Teams shoot 5% better from the mid-range with Caleb Wilson off the floor versus him on, and they shoot 7%. And UNC, is 7% worse offensively at the rim without Wilson versus with Wilson. So, yeah, if you look at it since since February 1st, VCU is a slight favorite in this game. If you go by Torvik, they're a 1-point favorite in this game. I lean VCU in this one. I think Vassar is the tough matchup, but when it comes down to the guards, I think Terrence Hill's a bulldog, and it's going to be very fun because Nick Lewis and Derek Dixon, who is UNC's starting at this point, I believe he's a starting point guard. They were on the same team as each other, both with Team Takeover with AAU ball. And in high school, they both played at Gonzaga. So their high school teammates matching up against each other in the first round of the tournament. I think that's a very fun narrative, but I think the guards for UNC are just not as good as VCU's guards, despite I do think Dixon was better than Lewis on those teams, but I think Terrence Hill's the best guard in this game, and I think he's going to have a real impact. I got VCU in this one. Their length on the wings, too, I think is enough to get at least annoy UNC, where if UNC had Wilson, I would take UNC, but they don't, and that's what we're picking.
Absolutely. The next team I wanted to talk about in this region, reigning champs of the college basketball crown, the 4-seed Nebraska Cornhuskers, going up against the 13-seed Troy. DeRosa's laughing because literally right before this podcast, me and him had probably like a 45-minute text conversation about our thoughts on the crown, which maybe we'll save for another time. But long story short, it's not great. We don't love the crown this year, especially their
every Big East team but Creighton turned it down. That's enough.
Yeah. So long story short, probably not the best field, but give it a watch if you got the time. But Nebraska, what do you like about this team, and how can they avoid an upset against Troy?
I think this game, it's very simple. Both these teams shoot a ton of threes. I think this game completely comes down to who makes more threes. The Moss matchup, I think it's the toughest for Troy. But if this is probably the longest shot upset I'm thinking about. It comes down to three-point shooting. It's going to be a three-point shooting contest. Nebraska's a great shooting team, but as they've hit deeper into conference play and they've gone on a little bit of a drought, teams have been able to hit threes against them, where in the beginning of the season, teams just weren't making anything against them. Part of it luck, part of it their defense has just gotten a little bit worse. If Moss is able to create, I do think they present some real troubles for Troy. And if they're hitting shots, they present troubles for anybody. But yeah, this is what I'm looking at. I think Troy's going to do enough to compete on the glass. I think Nebraska will force enough turnovers, but if it comes down to just three-point shooting, underdogs can hit threes too.
Yeah, absolutely. Nebraska, really interesting team. Started off the year 20-0, finished. They're entering the tournament 26-6. They lost their opening Big Ten Conference Championship game to Purdue, the eventual champions of the tournament. How do you slow down? How do you slow down this Nebraska team? Obviously, like you said, is it just stopping the three, or is there anything else you can do, should the three keep falling for the Huskers?
I think over 50% of their shots are from three. So that's kind of the main thing, right? If you're able to either run them off the line, which I think is much easier said than done, obviously, or just really stop the dribble penetration, which allows them to get inside to get threes. They run a lot of pretty complicated off-ball action. So it's really much easier said than done. It depends on the scheme Troy has, but I think Moss is kind of the guy that really makes it all go. He's the, I don't remember what Missouri Valley School he played for before. Was it Bradley? Was he at Bradley before?
I will get that for you in a second. Yeah. It was Bradley.
Yeah. Okay. He was at Bradley before. And then he comes to Nebraska. He was out last season with an injury. He's back this year. He was the guy I've underrated all year. And maybe I'm just doing it again. But I think he's the guy that kind of makes it go because he's a big man that's just super skilled. He's a great passer, and they know how to really play off him well. But I really think it comes down to just three-point shooting. It's simple, but that's how I think it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Another interesting team. Again, I don't know why I keep hovering to these 14 seeds just because it's interesting matchups. But Penn, the Quakers, Riley, obviously Penn, the Ivy League champs, in a very exciting Ivy League championship game. If you missed that on Sunday in between, some of the other 5 games that were going on that day, I do kind of feel bad for you because it was a really fun watch. What did they do against Yale to get the win, and what can they take into Illinois to make this an exciting game?
Well, they hit some timely shots and forced overtime to
Yes.
beat Yale is really what they did. But I'll tell you what, I mean, when it comes down to it, like Penn just can out tough and I mean behind TJ Power can outscore anyone in the Ivy League. I mean, as they kind of proved in the Ivy League championship here, getting it done in two tightly contested games, both in overtime, if I'm not mistaken, the first one against Harvard too. Yeah, unfortunately, it sounds like Penn is going to be missing Ethan Roberts for the tournament. I know he's been dealing with some concussion symptoms and was out for the Ivy League tournament. I haven't heard or don't have any reason to believe he'll necessarily be back for the NCAA tournament, which is tough because I think points-wise, he is their leading scorer. But, I wouldn't necessarily say he's the heartbeat of this team, as I alluded to a moment ago. It's definitely TJ Power, and he's what carried them through, in the Ivy League championship here. I mean, a guy who shoots it effectively, eats up a ton of the minute share at Penn, obviously coming from two Ivy League programs. He's got a ton of high major pedigree, didn't play a ton at those schools necessarily, but, a little bit of that experience never helps never hurts, on a big stage here like this. But yeah, I mean, it'll come down to sort of the way TJ Power plays. It's always going to be an uphill battle against a team like Illinois. They've just got a ton of tough physical European dudes and can score the heck out of the ball. I don't know if TJ Power is going to be able to score 40, 50 like he did in the Ivy League tournament to necessarily play. So we'll have to see how it works out there. And it does seem like, actually, Michael sending a tweet here in the chat, it does seem like they're trying to get Roberts to practice for the NCAA tournament, which would be a pretty big deal because when he's on the court, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but, I can assure you they are a much better team because he's a guy who's averaging almost 17 points per game. I've seen in person just how tough of a player Ethan Roberts is in particular. He's fought through different injuries this year to be with this team to help, lead them to the Ivy League tournament for the first time in a couple of years. The Ivy League tournament being only a 4-bid tournament, in an 8 team conference. It'll be an uphill battle, but if TJ Power is going to keep scoring like he's been scoring the past couple of weeks, if they get back in Ethan Roberts in some form, I'd keep an eye on a guy like Michael Zanoni and AJ Levine, who's the heartbeat of this backcourt, and their primary playmaker, averaging more than 4 assists per game this year. So a really talented Penn team when they're healthy, playing at their best. As I said, it's always an uphill battle against a team like Illinois. But just exciting overall for them to be back in the NCAA tournament under first-year head coach Fran McCaffrey. A program that maybe seemed like, for those around the Big Five, seemed like it had sort of been wilting the past couple of years. And he's a former alum. McCaffrey's kind of come back and breathed some life into it, obviously taking them back to the NCAA tournament for the first time, I think since, if I'm not mistaken, since 2018. So really exciting year for the Penn community. Of course, we were watching it on press row at the A-10 tournament, that game against Yale. How could you not be in overtime, taking down the number 1 seed? And I think it'll really come down to how TJ Power performs here. It's always just tough. 14 versus 3 is always tough. But a Penn team I like their physicality. I like their scoring. I like their defense too. They're one of the more efficient. I think they're the most efficient defense in the Ivy League and holding teams in conference to a league low. So, if they can hold Illinois' offense to low scoring and keep them off the boards, which TJ Power always does well. He's got a ton of size and physicality, and they score it well at times too. They've been over 100, they've been over 80 points multiple times in conference play. Have been up to 90, 95, and obviously dropped 88 on Yale, a really good Yale team in OT the other day. So we'll see how it plays out. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about Illinois, but really exciting year for Penn.
Yeah, absolutely. And just wrapping up on Penn real quick, that report about Ethan Roberts coming from Connor Smith of the Philly Inquirer. And then on a quick thing on TJ Power. Oh, and also you were right, and that this is the first Penn bid since 2018. And then just one quick thought on TJ Power. I think it was on his Instagram story, right? Probably one of the best pictures from championship weekend. Him bringing the Ivy League tournament trophy to that statue of Ben Franklin in Philly. That's awesome. I got a real kick out of that. DeRosa, tough Illinois team that the Penn Quakers are going up against. What can we expect out of Illinois?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I think this is a terrible matchup for Penn. Illinois just has so much size at really every position, right? Like Keaton Wagler. Like I don't know how Penn has a guy to stop him. McCaffrey versus Underwood again, I think is a very interesting matchup. I just think that's kind of fun. But yeah, I just think, I mean, Illinois has so much size that I feel like they just kind of are able to dominate Penn on the interior. And then if you're really over rotating on those guys, they also have shooters at literally every position. All the international bigs they have can all step out and hit threes. And they're all pretty physical. They're all pretty tough. And then if Wagler's in the pick and roll, it's generally pretty money. Penn hasn't been a great defensive team all year. They really can put up points in bunches, but I don't think they're a great defensive team. I think this game could be very high scoring. I think it could end like 105 to like 82 or something like that. I think could get really up and down, but I don't know how Penn's really going to be able to string stops together. I think Illinois really dominates them at any way they want to offensively. I don't see how this matchup goes any other way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just, your thoughts on a potential favorite to come out of this conference. Is it the reigning champs? Is it Houston? Or is it this Illini team that we've just been talking about? Or something else?
Yeah, I think it's very likely we get another Florida-Vandy matchup. The last matchup in the SEC tournament, Vandy just smoked them. Like, that game wasn't all that competitive. I think it's going to be interesting to see if we get adjustments there. Like, I'm pretty confident that matchup happens. In the end, I will be picking Florida. And I haven't been very high on this Houston team all season. I do think they got a good draw with the 7-10s. St. Mary's just hasn't beaten a team better than them in the NCAA tournament in a while. And Texas A&M is just so hot and cold. Like, I don't know what Texas A&M we're getting. So I do think we end up getting Illinois versus Florida. I'm not certain on how that game goes. I want to think about it a little more, but gut says Florida's been playing very well lately. I think their guards will do enough, and I think Florida's front court is just better than Illinois'. But I don't know. I'm not super confident on this region yet. I'm confident we get Florida versus Vandy, and then I think we get Illinois versus Houston. And just how it goes from there, couldn't tell you. It's very chalky, I know, but it's chalk region to me.
Yeah, absolutely.